Okay, we will go ahead and get city council started at 6:33. I'll ask you to stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Julie, roll call, please.
Julie isn't connected, so I'll do roll call for you.
Go ahead and do
Mayor
roll.
Connor,
Present.
Councilor Gerson,
Perfect.
Councilor Trask,
Here.
Councilor Gorley,
Here.
Councilor Nash, Councilor Goebel,
Here.
and Councilor Coleman.
Let the record show we have 6 present with 1 not present. Councilor Coleman had a family emergency this evening, was not able to attend. Before we get started, I had met with our city manager, and we were talking, recapping over this past year, and it's kind of disheartening and saddening that we were talking that how many of our children in our community we've lost this past year. And excuse me. And it's just saddening. And recently, as everybody's well aware, that we lost a young man that just getting started in his life. His name was Zachary Maynard. By all counts and by his actions, he's a hero, should be noted. Anyway, and just this last week, we lost an infant here in our community too. And it's just, I hope the Lord's with them and the Lord's with the family, and that I'm just amazed at this community support and how all our community comes together. And it's amazing how beautiful our community is, and I love living here, and I just love everything that goes on within our community. So at this time, I would appreciate a moment of silence for those we've lost, not only the children that we've lost, but for the family. Thank you. Consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Let the record show we have 6 ayes with 1 absent in approval.
Mr. Mayor, do we have to do something?
With, it's next. Susan Coleman. Because at this time, I also need a motion and second to approve the absence of Councilor Coleman.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show we have 6 ayes with no nays. Approval of Councilor Coleman's absence of this evening. Recognition of visitors and hearing of petitions. Anybody would like to come forth before council to be heard? Please come forth. I need name and address for the record, please. Thank you.
My name is Larry Anglin, and I live at 1107 Ironwood Street here in City Hall. The reason I'm coming, and it started everything off with a bad note, but I lived here a little over 13 years. I'm going on 14 now. And ever since I've been here, I've been trying to get our street fixed. And lately, it's just become a pile of dirt out there. And every time you open your door, you get a house full of dust and dirt. And we've gone to the city maintenance several times, and they come out and they throw a little bit of gravel in the holes. And one time they come out and put a couple of shovelfuls of dry asphalt in. It lasts about 2 days, and we're right back where we started. And on Ironwood Street, it's a little short street down off of 12th. With cut in there, it cuts into 10th Street, which is only about a house long. And I myself have had a 12-yard truck of gravel dumped in there to try to rectify things. one of my neighbors back here has another 12 yards, and another neighbor that's not here has had 12 yards. So I'm here on behalf of all 14 homes that are on that street to see if we can't get some asphalt work done on that street. Nothing's been done as far as I know since I've been here. And the other day when I went down to talk to the city yard, and I don't blame them because I know they have to get authority someplace. So that's the reason I'm here, to see if you can get some authority to have them do some work. They came down there with a subcontractor and he spread a little liquid on the ground. Didn't fill any of the holes or anything, so it didn't do us a bit of good except settle a little bit of dust. I'd like to see if we can't get something done as far as getting that street fixed. I know we're spending a lot of money on parks and painting and all this other stuff, but I'd like to see some maintenance done on the street. That one in particular, if you don't mind.
Okay, Greg, can you look into this and?
Yeah, I'm pretty well connected to what's going on with this particular case. You know, with our roads that we've talked about, our oil mat roads and our gravel roads, and that's what we talk about, the ongoing maintenance. And you'll never get them right until we get some sort of funding that we can actually apply asphalt. And those are things that we're trying to solve. We know we don't have enough money to do all the roads that we have in town currently to even maintain, let alone start tackling a lot of the gravel roads that we inherited from the county. So I think as we move forward, those are the types of discussions that we have, not just the SDC discussions, but how we're going to fund the additional things that we need to do that is over and above what we get from the state, from our gas tax. So, I mean, there's things that we're going to have to probably consider at some point down the road to get proper funding to even keep up with the roads.
To answer your question, we'll look into it and see what we can do. No immediate answer for you as far as what we can do, but what he's just referred to as the council, we're currently working on our SDCs and adjusting them enough to probably maybe address your issue that you're talking about.
We'd appreciate it if something could be done, because I don't think I should be the one, or my neighbors would be the ones to haul gravel on the street to keep some of those holes are that deep. And we take it over on ourselves, put the dirt in there and try to maintain them, but it shouldn't be our job to do it with the amount of taxes we have to pay.
Well, I think is from a city standpoint, we can see what we can do, maybe not to what you're asking for paving and all that, but maybe do something in the interim to help. And then we'll.
So the truck they sent out there, I understand he's a subcontractor and you can only do what he says he's supposed to do. But he shoots one of those shot about 70 or 80 feet down the road, and it's down the middle of the road. It doesn't cover the whole road, so you've got two cars going down the road. But that's what I was bringing for.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming this evening.
Excuse me, can I say something on behalf?
1 second, you have to be recognized, and second of all, you have to give name and address to, so if you want to come forth and name and address, you can speak on that behalf.
My name's Robert Coakley. I live on the same street as Larry Anglin.
Okay.
And currently I work for Knife River, and I just got off work a little while ago and we pave every day. But I was thinking a cheaper substitute to the owner's is, because I put, rock on our street, but just mainly around my house, but it gets tracked out there in the road. It gets crushed down, it creates dust, kind of like what Larry's saying. But a lot of companies are, and then a lot of, places in Lynn County, they're putting the tar and then the pea gravel. Then the car traffic actually, creates the tarmac, itself. They use the cart, instead of a steamroller or whatnot, but that might be a cheaper substitute for the city to do on our street.
Wasn't that, Greg, what you brought before?
We're on 29th right now, that'll
Yeah.
be done mid-month. But to be able to do that, you first have to have an asphalt foundation, which I don't believe Ironwood really does, right?
Well, it has an
It's an oil mat,
it's
kind of
like
a
an
mist
oil
mat,
mat,
so, yeah.
yeah. And I'm really appreciative of I talked with the head of maintenance the other day, and and I was fortunate to get off work early enough to talk to him, and And they oil part of the road, but when I spoke with them, you know, I mentioned about if they could bring the water truck and actually see what we have under there. And so the guy that came out there, a private contractor, he did a really good job, honestly. And we got down to see what we have, and it's kind of like a, you know, like a, not a tarmac, but it's, I don't really know what to call it, but
It's an old oil. map.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what we define it as. And it's roads that were done years ago where they put rock down, and then they put more oil and more rock, and it kind of built a hard foundation, but it is not a road by any means.
yeah, I agree with that. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, well, thanks for coming forth and bringing that to this evening.
Thank you.
So I want to clarify something. Greg, if we had the money to build that road, and it's not very long, I know where it's at. But isn't there the homeowners have to put money into that too?
Well, I think that's a whole nother discussion if you go into an urban district of some sort, which could be an option.
LID, and I don't know if they want to do that.
Okay.
And I think that's something that, sorry to, Mayor, if I may, that's something just to make people aware of, that if you're looking at an improvement that's just your neighborhood, that you want done, you can petition to have a district created. I mean, ultimately, it's all you and your neighbors that are paying for it to get that all done, but that's something the city can help with. And that is an avenue that people can kind of take an approach to get things like this done.
And again, that would then be reimbursed through tax dollars down the paying in the future.
Most people don't know that there is such a thing, but it's an option.
Anybody else would like to come forth before council will be heard? Name and address before.
Vince Adams, 809 Mountain View Road here in Sweet Home. And I'm here to speak on the housing development that's going to go in on 23rd and Ironwood, I think it is, there at the corner, or where it melds into the hillside there. And I want to make it known that I'm opposed to it. My family's opposed to it. We don't think that should be rezoned or anything other than what it is, single family housing. When we bought our house, that's what we expected, that's what we got, and now we're getting ready to change that, and we're not too happy about it. If it has to do with Affordable Housing Care Act and all that kind of stuff, there's other locations within the city, and you guys have property all the way out to Foster now, I guess, since we incorporated that much. You got property right next to this building. You guys want to put affordable housing, and the governor wants to throw that out there, make everybody do it. Don't do it in existing neighborhoods. Put it out somewhere where there's a little bit more opening, because all you're doing is you're crowding up and gumming up that small area down there already. There's a lot of houses down that little street going both ways. And I'm pretty sure that most of those folks aren't too happy about it. I talked to some folks that came in from the other end of 23rd, which is out the other way, because misinformation. But they were willing to come down here anyway, and at least hear what's going on with this affordable housing and this duplex or nineplex or whatever it is. If the developer already has the property, put a house or two on it, but you don't need to put an apartment complex in there. I really wish you wouldn't, and I just respectfully submit that my family and I were opposed to that. Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Stevie. Anybody else would like to come forth before council be heard? Okay. Moving forward, we're going to move new business ahead of old business. We're going to start off at a public hearing, and we will show opening the public hearing at 6:45. The public hearing is on considering the application AX 20-1 and ZC 20-1. I will open up the hearing by making a statement. For all those wishing to testify, please be aware that you must raise an issue with enough detail to afford City Council and parties an opportunity to respond to the issue if you later want to raise that issue on appeal. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the review criteria for text amendments. At this time, I'll ask city councilors if they have any personal bias conflict of interest, or any ex parte information?
No.
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 Counselor Goble?
No.
Okay. Let the record show that none of the counselors have any personal bias, conflict of interest, or any ex parte information. At this time, we will direct it now to staff report to review application.
Okay, the staff report is in your packets and available on the city website. There are, to be clear, there are two different applications. This one that we're talking about right now is an annexation and zone map amendment. And then later in the public hearing, there's another application that is a zone change, which I believe the gentleman was commenting on previously. So this first one application that we're talking about is to annex an approximately 39,000 square foot property that's located within the city of Sweet Home's urban growth boundary, to annex that into the city limits of the city of Sweet Home. The application also requests to change the zoning of the property from Lynn County's urban growth area rural residential 1 acre minimum zone to the city of Sweet Home's low density residential zone. The subject property is located within the city's urban growth boundary, and that the urban growth boundary is the area that has been identified as the planned location for urban development to be added to the city. Tax lots 400 and 500 to the east were annexed to the city in 2010, and tax lot 700, which is also nearby, was annexed to the city in 2017 under similar circumstances. They sought connection to the city's sewer system. The subject property is contiguous to the city of Sweet Home city limits. The Sweet Home Planning Commission held a public hearing on July 6, 2020. At the hearing, the Planning Commission reviewed application AX and ZC 20-01. The Planning Commission received testimony and deliberated on this matter at their July 6, 2020 meeting and passed a motion to recommend approval of the application to the City Council. That motion of approval specified a 12-day appeal period from the date the decision motion is mailed. No specific conditions of approval were required. The Sweet Home Municipal Code does not provide specific criteria for annexations. However, the City of Sweet Home Comprehensive Plan requires that upon annexation, that the zoning of the subject property be changed to a city zoning classification that is consistent with the Sweet Home Comprehensive Plan map. This application for annexation is therefore linked to the application for a zone change. For this reason, staff recommends that these applications be either both approved or both denied. This annexation proceeding was initiated at the request of the property owner. And so the issue before you is whether to change the zoning map to allow for the annexation into the city of this parcel, of this property, with the residential low density designation rather than the current Lynn County zone outside of city limits.
Okay.
And take any questions?
Any counselors have any questions of the staff to clarify the application or any part of the zoning ordinance or applicable information?
No.
Okay. At this time, we'll ask, is there any applicant's testimony? And I think it's by phone, wasn't it? Correct?
Yes, I think there is an individual on the phone.
Okay, so applicant's testimony at this time.
Hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
I think I accidentally remuted her.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. Go ahead with your testimony.
I guess I really don't have any testimony. This is Cindy Sig, and I just wanted to be here if there was any questions on the annexation of our property.
Okay. Moving forward on proponent's testimony. Testimony from those wishing to speak in favor of the application. Okay. Opponent's testimony. Testimony of those wishing to speak in opposition to the application. Okay. Neutral testimony. Testimonies for those that are neither in favor nor in opposition of the application. Any rebuttal? Any other phone calls coming in? Okay. At this time, we will close the public hearing at 6:52. Now we'll open it up for discussion amongst the council.
Mr. Mayor, refresh it, the two that to the east of there, were they hooking up to city water and wastewater? Or was that, am I not thinking that do you remember? Remember the two that came in, they came in and wanted.
They hooked up to city water and
Yeah.
sewer.
Sewer?
Yes.
Okay. Is that what these folks are gonna try to do also, or not?
My understanding is that wastewater is the primary motivation, but
Okay,
they likely would, I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually hooked up to water as well.
okay.
It's usually cheaper than repairing a well. No? Maybe. Okay.
Councilor Christian.
I have a question. So, Blair, looking at this, Elkhorn is not open at Old Holly Road for access, right?
That's
Want me
a,
to answer that one?
that's a.
Yeah, go ahead.
It is currently open. We're working with the county. We want to keep that open. The gate got damaged, and so we have them off right now. And that's probably been 30, 40 days, somewhere right around.
Because I'm looking at how if we put a couple of houses on that property, what are we looking at access wise?
You could partition the property, and have a parcel that's accessible off of Elkhorn. That's a possibility.
I would think too, at that point, I think that section from that driveway down on the road is still county though, right? The road itself.
Elkhorn is city.
Is it all?
Elkhorn is city, but
Not Elkhorn, I meant Holly coming down from.
Holly is county still at this point. We have talked to the county, or we've made it clear to the county that we would like to take that into our jurisdiction, the roadway. And all indications are that the county wants that as well. If that is to occur, it likely would make that whole intersection of Elkhorn and Old Holly, bring that into the city jurisdiction at that point. But that hasn't been done yet.
Parts of 8, you can see it on the map, but some parts of 8, I think that.
Well, it's not very far from 8th Avenue
No, it's not.
No.
to the end.
But the annexation of this property does not require that the county road be brought into our jurisdiction.
But Boulder Ridge is already in the city, right?
Yes,
Okay.
it borders around.
I'm looking at the density in Boulder Ridge. I'm looking at the density on 8th Street. I think it's right there, I think that it's actually a reasonable request.
Oh, I do too.
Councilor Gold, any input, feedback on this?
Nope, seems pretty straightforward.
Okay. So Blair, just a clarification, do we want to go on to the next public hearing, or do we need a directive on this one?
I think a directive on this one first, and
Okay.
there is a misprint in the RCA. It should say, if you approve of it, that you would be moving it to the first reading.
Yes. So I need a council directive.
Is that the one on page 2? Is that what we're trying to do here?
No, page,
I
well,
just do the RCA.
I don't think it's basically if you want to move AX 20-1 and ZC 20-1 to first reading tonight.
Well,
So
It's on page 32 of your packet.
31, 32.
I move as recommended.
Okay. I have a motion on the table.
I'll second it.
Motion second, all in favor say aye.
aye.
Aye. Opposed? The record show we have 5 ayes, 1 nay, and 1 absent. We'll move forward to first reading tonight. Under ordinance. Okay. At this time, we will open up for the second public hearing at 6:58. Once again, this is in regards to application ZMA 20-02. And at this time, I'll read the statement again. For all those wishing to testify, please be aware that you must raise an issue with enough detail to afford City Council and parties the opportunity to respond to the issue if you later want to raise that issue on appeal. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the review criteria for the text amendments. At this time, I'm asking City Councilors, have you any personal bias, conflict of interest, or any ex parte information?
No.
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 Let the record show we have 6 nays with no personal bias, conflict of interest, or any ex parte information. This time, we'll turn it over for staff report.
This is a zone map amendment application, ZMA 20-02. The applicant is proposing to change the zoning map in an area consisting of approximately 26,552 square feet, or 0.61 acres, located on the Lynn County Assessor's Map 32CA, tax lots 4735 and 4700, Sweet Home, Oregon. The Sweet Home zoning map is proposed to change from the residential low density zone to the residential medium density zone. The proposed zone change would bring the zoning designation into conformity with the property's existing comprehensive plan map designation. The Sweet Home Planning Commission held a public hearing on July 6, 2020. At the hearing, the Planning Commission reviewed application ZMA 20-02. The Planning Commission received testimony and deliberated on this matter at their July 6, 2020 meeting and passed a motion to recommend approval of the application to the City Council. That motion of approval specified a 12-day appeal period from the date the decision motion was mailed. No specific conditions of approval were required. So the question before you is whether the zone map should be changed to allow the medium density residential rather than the current low density residential.
Okay.
The application is only for the zone change. It is not for any building activity. That's a separate application.
Okay. Any councilors have questions of the staff to clarify the application or any part of the zoning ordinance or any applicable information? Okay. This time, applicant's testimony. Do we have an applicant's testimony who wants to talk on this? Okay. Proponent's testimony. Testimony is for those wishing to speak in favor of the application. Opponent's testimony. Testimony is wishing to speak in opposition of the application. Sir. Go ahead, name and
809 Mountain View Road, Sweet Home. I just want to reiterate that my family, also live around, we're opposed to this zoning change. Thank you.
Neutral testimony. Testimony is from those that are neither in favor nor in opposition of the application. Any rebuttal? Okay. This time at 7:01, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. We'll now open this up for discussion amongst councilors. Any questions or discussion amongst councilors?
I have a question.
Councilor Gerson.
So is this mostly single-family homes based, looking at this property?
So this property to the north is an apartment complex. The property to the east is a single-family home, but I believe it's got an accessory dwelling in the basement. The property to the west is a church. Across the street are single-family homes, and then to the north west are there's single-family homes.
So the question I had was, isn't that kind of a gully? Isn't that really a heavy terrain in there?
So,
And wouldn't we need an engineer's report to put this kind of housing on that?
okay, so that's the building activity is a separate issue.
Okay.
This is only for the zone change, but I can say that when a building application is submitted, there are a number of things that are required, especially how to handle the stormwater, out of making sure that things are engineered properly to not impact other properties around. And so the property did recently change hands, and so it's a different owner than owned it previously. And they've made their intention that they want to they're doing the zone change because they want to do more low density on that parcel. So there is a slope. Mountain View is higher than 23rd. The designs that the preliminary designs that they have shown us would there would be no access off of 23rd. And so it would be engineered to handle that slope.
I think it's actually in keeping with the apartments there to the north, but I'm still just really concerned. I know that they do that kind of construction in Portland and different things, but we get a lot of water here. And that would be my only concern.
Any other questions? Any councilors?
Yeah, it's kind of a statement. You know, I mean, if something like this gets rezoned and you got multiple neighbors around there that get agitated, you know, I mean, you got one investment company wanting to come in when this gentleman said here, you know, there is other properties. There is around here, you know, I mean, you could sell that one off as it is, but what's going to happen with that neighborhood and people just taking off because they're tired of low housing or low cost or whatever they're trying to put in there? Because I mean, I've lived in areas like that and I would never want to be around them.
One point of clarification, there hasn't been an affordability any information on that given to us from the applicant. So they have talked about a 9-plex, but it's not anything that we know of that would be subsidized in any way or anything like that. It's not a affordable housing complex. Those are loaded terms that bring a lot of baggage with them. We haven't had any information that indicates it would be such. Regardless of what's there, you're always going to have a border between higher density and lower density. It's just a question of where you're comfortable with it being.
Well, Mr. Mayor, and I'm not sure, but I think that there's some places on the end of 23rd, on the west side at the end, and also on the east side. Yeah, in that area.
Right here is
So,
the family.
I don't know why we would not allow that to happen on that same property. I don't know.
Again, that would come before council, whether we're going to allow affordable housing.
Well,
That's not-
right. I mean, that's a different. I mean,
It's a whole different.
It's a different matter than the zone
Yeah,
change.
exactly.
Talking about the use. The one reason why at the planning commission public hearing, the thing that carried the most weight for them was that the comprehensive plan map, as it stands now, lists this property as a medium density residential, not low density residential. So that map is what kind of dictated their recommendation.
Well, for me, the housing problem we have is pretty significant, so I don't know how I could say no to this. I don't know. I don't think I could. I mean, I understand what the folks were, but, you know, I live in a highly dense area. I've got about this far between my house and next house about, but I don't know how we deal with that if we turn all these people down.
I agree. The housing market is so crunched that we're going to be seeing more and more people building multiple housing, and we just hope that it's tastefully done.
Oh, yeah.
True. Any other council questions or discussion? Okay. I need council directive.
Did you close the public hearing?
Oh, yeah, I did. Well, I did, but
I didn't remember. So This one is, there's a typo on the RC for this one, just like the last one. If you do vote in favor of it, you would be moving it to the first reading, not the second reading.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, so moved as recommended.
Motion on the table.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No,
Yay.
The record show we have, well, actually, we have 3 ayes and 3 nays. 1 absent. So,
We go back to more discussion?
you can go back to more discussion, but it's a null void.
My thing is, I mean, we had one guy show up here that lives in that neighborhood and don't like it, and the guy that wants to change it didn't go.
But does the property owner have the right to make it multiple housing?
That's fine, but if you got a public hearing, you're not here to defend it.
I'll open to a question in the back. I do need a name and address for the record.
My name is Jim Bradford. I'm actually the property owner for that area, so I can provide some information and clarity for you.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you want to reopen the public hearing?
Yeah, you should have, well, yeah, well, you should have, when we had the public hearing open, you should have came forth and
Yeah, I didn't know there was going to be anybody opposed to it when we had gone through.
still, you've got to come forth of the testimony. I'll go ahead and reopen the public hearing again at 7:09. I don't need to necessarily have to go through all the processes that we just did. I will go all the way down to, I'll start off with the applicant testimony, if you'd like to come forth and at least name and address for the record so that we have it, and we'll go from there.
Jim Bradford, 1910 South 7th Street, that's Lebanon, Oregon. So I'm a local resident around the area and developing the property, and with the huge, like was mentioned previously, the huge need for housing in this area. The goal was to, because it's in the comprehensive plan, is to take it where the city actually wants it in the comprehensive plan. And we have the intent to add housing, especially for the Sweet Home area, because it's highly needed right now. It also provides some tax revenue also for the city of Sweet Home. We plan on building higher end units, so they're going to be very nice, attractive apartments. They're going to be landscaped like Aspen Place in Lebanon, so on and so forth. So it would allow new construction. It would help revitalize the city a little bit. There'd be nice apartments with AC. We've already submitted a few things to the city and stuff like that, and that was the comprehensive plan. We don't plan for it to be like a low-income housing. That's not our goal. We want to have a very nice, building, so it looks proper.
Okay.
That's our goal.
Okay, well, thanks for coming forth with your testimony. I'll go down the list again. Proponents' testimony. Testimony of those wishing to speak in favor of the application other than the testimony from the applicant. Okay, opponent's testimony. Testimony is for wishing to speak in opposition of the application. Anybody would like to come forth once again? Go ahead.
Probably need to move it.
Yeah, sorry.
Vince Adams, 809 Mountain View Road, and I'm still in opposition to this whole thing. You're taking and squeezing a bunch of apartments in an area that's already stressed out from all the housing that's in there, and most of the housing, with the exception of the one that you showed up here, is all single-family dwellings. So you guys are squeezing a bunch more in on a hillside, no less, into an area where people are already, established in their homes, single-family dwelling. So we're opposed.
Okay. Neutral testimony. Testimony of those voted neither in favor nor opposition of the application. Any rebuttal? Did anybody else call in, Brenda?
No.
Okay. At this time, I will close the public hearing at 7:11 and open it back up to council discussion. Any questions, councilors?
What's it cost to rent an apartment these days?
Approximately about $1,000 is the current rent for 2-bedroom, 2-bath, with the amenities that we're providing.
Is that here in this area?
Yeah, and the Sweet Home in Lebanon area.
Yeah. One more house.
1,000.
1 house.
Yeah, housing crunch is huge right now.
I mean, 1,000 is 1,000 is 1,000. 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 1,000 is 1,000
Oh, Mr. Mayor, you're absolutely right. It is high, but it's high everywhere.
Well, that's what I was looking at 11 years ago before I met my wife. I mean, I was looking at $1,500 just
Yeah.
for a 2-bedroom.
And with the housing problems that we have, I don't understand why we wouldn't want to build more. I just don't understand that. I can't put my head around that. Makes no sense to me.
But the amount of people working, how are they gonna afford it?
Well,
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'd like to ask you a question, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Will these be single story?
They're actually gonna be a 3-story, they back up to Mountain View, so there's gonna be no obscuring Mountain View right there. They'll just have the view out north.
3-story?
Yes. Yeah, where the height of Mountain View is, the elevation change, the property, the way it's located out, the one lot up higher, we don't own, and that we agreed with the city that that's good, would be accessed from Mountain View. This one would be nestled back in. There's some trees back there. We've obviously, it'd all be engineered and everything to meet all the city requirements and any codes and stuff. We've already discussed some of that. So
it'd be a single building with 3 stories?
yeah, single building, like a real common right now, they're building a lot of 9 plexes, 12 plexes, and 18 plexes. So that's what we're doing. Allows you to get to where you can get density in with the apartments to fit in with the size that it is. That way we're not crowded on anything. You know, where there's extra, there's room for yards, there's room away from neighbors, that sort of a thing. But we still have a nice premier facility for the city of Sweet Home. So residents do have a nice building that they can choose, and obviously we lower, homeless rates and, the issues we're facing right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
well, Mr. Mayor, they're building them everywhere. I mean, Lebanon is going absolutely insanely crazy over this stuff. I mean, you go to the west side of town, out on Airport Road, there's 2 brand new ones going up that are 2-story, I believe 2-story. And down on the other end of South Second, there's another one going in past the park. I just don't, whatever the council does is fine, but I just don't see the reason for not letting that happen.
If you're going to do multiple level housing with your back to that hillside with that view, it is actually more a natural setting for that to occur there. And like I said, I'm concerned about the weight in the hillside, but that's not our problem. Our deal is, does the owner have the right to build that in that dense of a population? And you have apartments right there on 23rd and Ironwood.
And
You already have
and
apartments, yeah.
Yeah, they're already there. Yeah. Any other questions of councilors or discussion? Okay. I need a council directive.
I think since there was a previous motion that failed, I believe, and Robert, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that you may need to make a motion to reconsider if you want to change that.
Okay. Need a motion to reconsider?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
We're still at a deadlock.
So your options would be to either, if it's tied, it essentially fails.
Mm-hmm.
And so the options were, you could, it's either failed or you make a motion to continue it to another meeting.
And we can make them, because then we'd have potentially the 7th council here, we can have a motion to continue to next meeting.
Can we ask them to bring more information?
I believe so.
Yeah.
You can basically continue the public hearing to another meeting and I'm not sure what additional information, if you want more additional information from staff, we can see about answering those questions. And then if you have additional questions of the applicant, we can see about that. But you would need to continue the public hearing to a later period.
So we need a motion if we want to move this to a future hearing.
So will this be a motion to table it until the next time?
It would be a motion to continue the public hearing to a later date,
Then I'll make that motion
to the next,
to the next council meeting.
council meeting.
I'll second that.
A motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Record show we have 4 ayes, 2 nays, and 1 absent to move it for future meeting. Okay. Moving on, City Council Candidate Handbook, Candidate Qualifications and Filing Procedures for General Election.
Do you want to go back to the oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I don't know.
Before you, so this is an election year. There are 3 seats that, no, 4 seats that will be up for election in the general election on November 3rd. The packet inside your council packet contains kind of the information on qualifications to be a city councilor, some information on, you know, what it's like to be a councilor, some information from the League of Oregon Cities on, so you want to be an elected official. So we've provided that packet for you to kind of flip through. There are, again, 4 of you that are up for, your seats are up for election. And I don't know if Julie has anything else that she'll want to add to what I've said.
I don't have anything to add.
Okay.
Those packets are available here at City Hall for anybody interested in picking them up. We do have paper copies available on a requested basis. They're also available on our website. Folks can certainly download them from there.
Page freezer contract review.
In your packets, beginning on page 106, is a contract for a social media archive system. Currently, the city works with a organization called Archive Social. So much like all of the rest of our documents, our emails, our paperwork, anything that takes place on our computers, all of that's public record, and our social media accounts are certainly the same. Our communications specialist, Legia Mall, she's the one who's putting this request in front of you today. She had a meeting with Page Freezer. The ultimate outcome was that service would be less expensive to the city overall and provide the city with additional benefits regarding the archiving of our social media accounts. This is a requirement under ORS. I think it's ORS 192. Specifies, you know, what public records have to be kept. So we've brought this before you. It's a 3-year agreement with Page Freezer. And we're hoping that you'll review and give us some direction on whether or not to switch agencies.
Okay, so you'll come back to this in the next meeting. Because it doesn't say council directive.
Oh, it is an RCA. Sorry, we are looking for a,
Okay.
apparently the title didn't get.
Okay. So we have a council directive regarding this.
Ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead. Question.
So, and it would be 1488 or whatever that total is for each year?
Yes.
With the savings of $24.50 over the span of the contract.
Correct.
So moved as recommended.
Motion on the table.
I'll second that.
Motion second. By roll call, please.
Mayor Mahler,
Yes.
Councilor Gerson,
Yes.
Councilor Nash,
No.
Councilor Trask,
Yes.
Councilor Goebel,
Yes.
Counselor Gorley,
Yes.
Let the record show we have 6 ayes with no nays with 1 absent. Approval of Page Freezer contract. Memorandum 2020 levy rates.
Much like it is election time regarding council seats, it is also that time to reopen the levies. So the levies, as you know, are 5-year local option levies. They expire at the end of that 5 years unless the citizens vote to continue or change those levies in some fashion. We've put together some information for you there in that memo. I'm going to quickly breeze through some specific items that we think are of importance for you today. Certainly, if you have any questions, stop me or Jeff or I can answer, or Rose too, can answer any questions that you might have. So some of the information we included in there for you deals with kind of the compression and delinquency rates to give you some background on kind of why the rates are where they are today. Currently, the levies are $7.85 per $1,000 of assessed value for the police department and $1.17 per thousand for the library. The last time this levy was up for renewal was during the general election in 2015, and at that time, that's when those levy rates were increased to the rates that they are today. If you are looking at the graph, I believe it's on page 2 of that memo, you can see that back from 2010, that compression rate has steadily risen. And so if you remember the compression, that compression is based on the variance between the real market value of a home and its listed assessed value. And as real market value gets closer to that assessed value figure, then the compression increases because of measure 5, where we can only have a certain number, $10 per thousand on any general government taxation and property taxes. At its highest peak, the compression for both of those levies reached 38.2%. So 38% of the revenue from those property taxes that the city would have gotten was compressed and stayed in property owners' pockets and resulted in a pretty significant loss of revenue for the city. To combat that compression issue in 2015, the council at the time decided that increasing those rates would be beneficial, and the citizens agreed and voted to pass those through. The delinquency rate is provided there just so that you can kind of see where how that money comes in. And so the delinquency rate has been relatively consistent. We are projecting a kind of a higher delinquency rate in this current fiscal year because we really don't know with the pandemic in our hands what kind of payments are being made. You know, with the deferral of mortgage payments, we're not sure if escrow companies are going to essentially pick up the deficit for folks who maybe haven't been paying into the escrow for their property taxes each year. Or if there's going to be a kind of a later impact. The other potential is that folks, those escrows choose not to pick that up, and instead of taking advantage of kind of that 3% coupon, I guess I'll call it, where if you pay your property taxes in one full swing in November, you get 3% off. There's a possibility that folks will kind of spread out their payments over 12 months in order to kind of offset the initial hit in their pockets. So we have projected that 8% delinquency rate. The 8% is about the highest point at which it reached in 2012 when we were kind of in the midst of the ongoing housing crisis. So that's kind of where we came up with that information. And then you can see that we kind of level off to a 6% number, which has been about our average. I have provided for you here on the screen information regarding kind of the budgeted numbers for the next 5 years, so that what that levy would look like. This here on the screen is the public safety levy. We have made some revisions to the 2021 estimates because property taxes as of January had gone up about 6% from the year before. That was in January 2020, and that's the cutoff for what the county estimates for the real market values when they're doing tax assessments. So we've adjusted these figures since you last saw them during the budget process. You can see that on the public safety side, there is still a small concern out into 2026, but that's the budget committee and the council voted to kind of address that as we go, and it decided that providing the same level of service was critical at this time. The library is certainly in a much better position. The property tax adjustment at the end of 2026 got them near that 6 months fund balance that we have been shooting for. So ultimately, what I'm trying to display here is that staff is kind of recommending to you as the decision makers that we leave those rates, those levy rates, where they are. We request that they stay where they are and go out for vote. Citizens would review those and make a decision at the November election. We're not asking for any council decision tonight. We're just we're getting the information out there. We're letting you have, kind of that thought process about, where you'd like those levy rates to be. Maybe you want to leave them, maybe you want to change them. And our plan is to bring them back before you for the August 11th meeting, as well as a public hearing before we move to resolutions and let you all decide which route you want to go. But at this time, based on kind of our forecasting and the dollars that would be generated from leaving the levies where we're at, we're just asking for a renewal of the current rates.
Chief and Rose, do you have anything you want to add, or?
Not at this time. I think we'll have a lot of probably discussion the next meeting on it. I will say that there are some key dates that we have to hit to get to the ballot on the November election. And so today was the date to get the information out to you, and hopefully council will be able to address it at the 11th and make a decision on the route they want to go for the levies. And then August 14th, forms have to be into the city manager and the city attorney. And then by September 2nd, we have to have the title and description to Lynn County, notice of major election. So there are just some timeframes we have to hit.
Rose, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think Jeff said it all.
Sounds good. Questions of councilors? Okay. James, do you have any question?
No, I do not.
Okay. Thank you. At this time now, we had
Sidewalk project.
Yep. Go back to that on old business.
So there's a memo Joe put together that's on page 10 of your packet, kind of outlining the status of the Odot Sidewalk project. Joe, would you like to just kind of give a recap of what you presented?
Yeah. It's just a one pager that encompasses about 18 years worth of time from when we started to when it got approved, to a couple major changes that most were initiated by the state, not us. We had grand ideas at the beginning that modified over time, and as time happens, costs go up, and so consequently, we were planning to do the sidewalk sections from 55th to 60th, a portion of the sidewalks out near two busy destinations, two RV parks and two restaurants, and some improvements on the Lakeshore Path. About midway through the process, even after it was reviewed and approved by the state, some of those elements were deleted from the project. The multimodal transportation enhancement program document that links Odot to the city for our share of development costs, match, that type of thing, was signed. A few more changes. The state deleted things like the rapid flashing beacons that were planned. They did include an additional sidewalk section for this area to go from 60th out to Riggs Hill Road on the opposite side. And in the intervening years, the cost went up. ODOT got a bit hesitant about contingency costs. Product and materials and manpower and labor have gone up. Their concepts of what it would be changed. So they cut back on this project with this diagram pretty significantly. We were intending to have 2 sidewalks on both sides of Main Street, a segment out here, and then other stuff by Lake Shore, but that all went away because it's core land. Over time, the south side sidewalk was deleted entirely, and what remains now is only the 2 pedestrian crossings at 40th and 49th, and what remains of the sidewalk project is on the north side only. Their project costs went up and the scope of the work went down. The sidewalk section was revised to be a 10-foot wide multi-use path from 56th to 60th Avenue. The multi-use path would only be part of that distance because with the discussions with the Albany and Eastern Railroad, they were hesitant to be involved in working within the railroad right of way. And in case something happened, damage to the bridge structure, never mind that it's already damaged pretty significantly, they felt that it provided an extra level of liability to them to do that work. So consequently, they're still willing to put a sidewalk segment from 55th Avenue to 60th Avenue on the north side only, and with the exception of the railroad crossing, of which we will be the responsible party for. We're still in the MTEP agreement between ODOT and the city, responsible for our match portion, the 300,000 that has been carried through, partially expended for engineering and design expenditures early on. That's still on the books, but with the hesitancy to do any of the work under the railroad trestle, that's on us. And however, it doesn't necessarily mean that it will be a full cost element similar to a full sidewalk. Because of the indeterminate nature of the future of the bridge, one can do an ADA approved material pathway. So rather than spending a significant amount of money on probably roughly 80 feet of 10-foot wide concrete pathway, one can do a small aggregate compacted rock path, similar to what you find in, for example, the Newport Aquarium. It's a compacted ADA capable pathway. You still have to put a railing up, still have to do some retaining wall structure. The roadway can narrow because it'll be our responsibilities to get through and under the railroad trestle. And so we can have some design control over that. But nonetheless, it would be a lower cost option in the sense that at least we'll be able to get from point A to point B, and that the highway responsible people, the Odot, of course, they don't want to do anything there. So if we want anything to happen, it's going to be on us. So I do not know at the moment if our commitment to the 300,000, our match, can be used for part of that. All things being equal, I have my doubts. And I think that at the time when it actually gets developed, we'll need to handle that. We'll need to deal with that. We'll need to find the funds at some point to complete what we can get. There will not be any sidewalks or crossings out at the Riggs Hill Road Shade Point area, which is one of the original goals. There won't be a sidewalk on the south side of the highway, which was one of the original goals. But this will at least get an opportunity for our community to easily get to the lakeshore area at 60th Avenue, and then pathways can go from there, rather than walking on a dirt trail and walking within 2 feet of the fog line between it and the guardrail, on the highway. That's the way they did things back then. But the project still will encompass 2 very necessary pedestrian crossings of the 4-lane road. One just about 100 feet or a couple hundred feet east of here, near the Midway Market, because a lot of people cross there. We've had injuries, perhaps a death or 2. We've had injuries and a death, I believe, at the 49th Avenue crossing. Those pedestrian crossings are critical to our community of crossing a 5-lane highway. 6 if you count the totality of the bike lane along the curves. And a fairly high-speed highway at that. They will be signaled, but yeah, they will be. And those have gone more expensive as well, because now there are lighting requirements that they have to have a certain light level at that crossing. Never mind that they were placed so that there's a street light right there. They still have to have lights on either side. There's a median refuge for the pedestrians. You have to do that with a multi-lane crossing. Similar to maybe a future one at 22nd, you've got to have a refuge in the middle. So the map indicates both what we were going to be able to get, which is the blue line, and the red line is what we will get. And so it's certainly better than nothing. The excessive, or what appears to be the excessive cost, is mostly on ODOT's dime because of the way they configure their contingencies, their project estimations. Some of it's pretty reasonable, some of it's pretty high, and but we at least are on the hook for our match contract. It's a significant challenge, and it has taken way too long. But
we started this what, in 2012 or 14?
2012.
12, that's what I thought, 2012.
Yeah.
I know this is a little sarcastic, but what century are they planning on doing this in?
Well, hopefully this one.
Okay.
Within the next couple of years.
Next couple of years.
Yeah.
Ray has told me that it is now upwards, if they had done originally it was like what, 2.5?
It was shy of 2 million.
2 million, okay. He's telling me now that did the whole project was now almost close to 5 million?
About 4.
4?
About 4.
Okay, stand corrected.
Yeah, to go 1,700 feet. There's just no way.
So in 2 years, are they gonna come back and say now it's 7, 8 million?
Well, I don't think we have any control over that. They may. The problem with their budgeting is that they have a lot of fixed costs. They are rebuilding some things that I didn't think were necessary in the original design. For example, some stormwater elements that are pretty expensive. And even in a detailed estimate, they had a 30% contingency fee or cost element. So even though you're spending on the books $4 million, $1 million plus of that may be a contingency that normally you don't have, because the more detailed your estimate, the lower your contingency goes. But they have a detailed estimate and a high contingency. I think they, for no fault of their own, sometimes, they've had a few recent projects that have gone way over budget. And so they're hesitant to expend more than they have. Plus, there's probably some other elements in there as well, but
So I have a couple.
it is just going to be expensive.
So in your red area on the map,
Yes.
how much of that already has existing sidewalk? I mean, not 10 foot wide, but it has existing sidewalk there. Is it
None,
most of it?
none,
None?
none of it.
I thought that was going, I thought there was some.
No, where the red is on the north side of the highway is starting at the end of where the sidewalk exists between 54th and 56th.
Okay.
Outside the business right there.
Foster Lake Mall.
Foster Lake Mall, thank you, yes. And that will cross 56th Avenue. It'll, as a 10-foot wide multi-use path, so that people can go in both directions, particularly bikes, because normally you want to have pathway on opposite sides of the road. If you can't, you've got to do a 10-foot wide. And so there's nothing there but grass all the way east and through and under the bridge abutments and support structure to 60th, where the marina RV park is.
So with all of these changes, have they ever looked at just putting an asphalt bike path there so that we could at least have something to encourage people to be able to use that?
They focused primarily, and in the original design, was a standard concrete sidewalk. The asphalt paths, while can be certainly functional, 10, 15, maybe 20 years if you're lucky, don't hold up over the long term. I know they've done pretty well out in the valley in some cases, you know, between Corvallis and Monmouth, for example, or some of those areas. But they're, I think those areas are easier to build on. Here at the railroad, there is a limited space east of there to 60th, and it's a hillside, about 15 feet high or so. So that's part of the cost of retaining walls and railings.
Let me for a minute.
And so there's issues like that.
The other problem is that the material cost of concrete versus asphalt is not adding that much to the cost here. The ODOT considers this to be a rehab project or an enhancement project. And so it's not just adding the sidewalk, but because of the way their rules are structured, this triggers needed improvements with the stormwater along the sides of the highway. And so essentially what this whole project is it's not just paying for a sidewalk, it's paying for all their stormwater improvements that are now required that apparently were not big enough before. And so even if you change to asphalt, you still have to do, they still, under their rules, have to do all that upgrade of the stormwater. And that's really where a lot of the cost, I think, is coming from. It's these other things that they have to do because of their rules. If you were to switch to asphalt, it wouldn't actually save as much money in the long run as you would think, and it's unfortunate.
So my last question, because this is a grant and the scope of the project has changed so much, is it reasonable for us to discuss timelines with them before they've changed the scope? They've changed the timeline has gone crazy. At some point, do we just like, okay, whenever you get around to it, let us know, or say, hey, we need to move on?
It's a question of leverage. I mean, if we choose to pull out of it, yes, we could save some money, but we don't get anything. And there's some money that we still end up paying because some work has been done already, and that would come out of our.
Even though they've created the scope difference.
Right, and unfortunately, we just don't have any leverage to make them do anything other than what they're gonna do.
No, there's nothing we can do about it.
So if we want to, for what we're putting in, if we go through, assuming we go through with it, it's still a good deal for us because we get something. And we get, and the amount of what we get is still, for the money that we're putting in is still a good deal. In that we don't pay the full cost of what's going in. It is unfortunate to see how expensive it is and think that overall taxpayers, I think, are not winning out. And so for that reason, I would recommend we continue forward with it. But unfortunately, it doesn't leave us with any leverage to do anything about it. I think really the only, if we want to make our unhappiness with this known, I think going at it politically would probably have more of an effect. And so encouraging our representatives to look at how Odot does their cost estimates and what rules they're under, to make people aware that the cost of how the costs balloon for things like this. But unfortunately, we just don't have much we can do about it. I wish we could.
And I know I promised one last question, I was done, but I guess I lied. So the lights, do we have an approximation on how much they cost to have those lights put in?
The rapid flashing beacons, I believe that they are estimating at about the $80,000, 80 to, somewhere between 80 to
100,000
each.
Yes, yeah. And the reason is it's a 90-foot wide roadway. They have to make ADA accessibility aprons that aren't there right now. The center median refuge, 2 sets of lights, one for each direction. The intertie between everything. It's darn expensive. But those two are the best likely scenarios at this end of Main Street for the best locations, I mean.
Mr. Mayor, so the ODOT doesn't want to deal with the railroad. So we're going to put ourselves at the liability part of that if we go around that thing and the thing collapses for whatever reason and they say it's our fault. So why would we want to do that and have that liability on us?
Well, right. It's our best, least preferred option, or it's the fact that they don't want to.
We don't have to either. Let's be clear. We don't have to put a path underneath the railroad trestle. But what you're going to end up, if we don't, what you're going to end up with is you're going to have a hard surface sidewalk that ends right before the railroad trestle and has a couple of posts with some diagonal yellow and black painted sign, basically telling people the sidewalk ends here. And then at the other side of this railroad, you have the same thing. And most people are just going to go around it and walk under the railroad bridge anyway.
Right. Dirt trail.
And so we can choose to do that. The fact is, ODOT doesn't like the liability of the railroad bridge. The railroad, I would love to convince them to tear down the bridge because frankly, I don't think that it's repairable in the state that it is in. I think it's probably better to build a new bridge than to try to repair what's there. The problem is I think the railroad first of all, doesn't want to do anything they don't have to do. And second, I think they're concerned that if they got rid of the bridge, they wouldn't be able to put anything back up ever. And so they're reluctant to go that route. The only way that Odot would do it is if the bridge was gone or reconstructed, which is pretty dang expensive.
Right. Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of questions.
Councilor Gerson, go ahead.
So the contract, the way this is written is that it does say that the city is responsible. Okay, so in essence, we do have to do it if we're responsible, right? I mean, that's what it says.
Under the bridge, you're talking about the contract for the overall project?
What this says is the city responsibility will be too. So we are responsible for doing it. We don't have an option according to this.
No, we
The way
don't.
it's written.
You mean the original agreement with Odot?
No, I'm talking about what they put in what we have in the agenda. It says we are responsible for doing it.
Oh, in Joe's memo, you mean? Meaning we're responsible for doing it, mean that we would have to pay for it, not that we definitely have to put that portion in.
Right. It can be just.
It could be removed from the scope entirely.
Right.
Well, no, I think she's talking about in deciding to say, hey, guys, thanks, but no thanks. This has really changed too much.
Yeah,
You would get on the hook for all the costs that have been incurred so far.
But what's been expended so far is not as much as our full responsibility toward the grant, right? I mean, because under the agreement, we would put in 300,000. That amount has not been expended yet.
Not in full, no.
Not in full, no. So I mean, we get something, we save something theoretically, but we get nothing.
Right.
Okay, secondly, are they putting bike paths in?
No.
So that went down the tubes too also.
Well, the bike path is the multi-use path for both pedestrians and bikes. The 10-foot wide, multi-path is for both in the same location. They won't be a separate bike lane or a bike path on opposite sides of the road. It's all on one side in a 10-foot wide path. Typically, those also will have a center stripe in them as well, just to guide to the human nature, to stay to the right. But really, it's all on the same surface, pedestrians and bicyclists, all on the same surface.
2/60th only.
2/60th only.
And
the reason that 60th is that at 60th Avenue, you have an easy link over to the rest of the lakeside area, the trail there. At some point in time, that lakeside path will be rebuilt, but to 60th only.
okay, but 60th is not really very wide in order to access the path.
Right.
But there is a sidewalk there.
Yeah, but there is a sidewalk at 60th that it will tie into a couple of rebuilt ADA ramps, because even though the ramps are fine at the moment, they're not to standard, so those have to be redone. And at that point, 60th Avenue has 2 separate sidewalks and 2 separate bike lanes. And at that point, they can go over to the crossing and then east or west along the roadway.
Okay, my last question, if I may. My last question is, I am concerned about Riggs Hill because we have a lot of people who cross the highway there because of the lake accessibility to the lake and the RV parks there.
Yes.
They didn't see that as important?
It's not a question of importance.
Yeah, to them, it's, well, and to us, in a sense, it's the financial element. Rears its ugly head in those kind of situations. Even to put in a rapid flashing beacon is not advisable at that location. You're better off to have opposing ADA ramps on either corner and let people, pedestrians, be cautious and safe crossing the highway. The advantage of a rapid beacon, flashing beacon is on low-speed roadways. High-speed roadways, one person will stop at, the next or second behind person following may not. And so there's issues like that. But having the sidewalks and some form of obvious crossing right there at Riggs Hill and the entrance driveway to Shea Point seemed like good common sense. And that's not to say at some point in the future, we can do that. But I think we'll be on our own.
Not in our lifetime.
Well, I was gonna say, we'd have to do it on our own, but you still have to have ODOT's blessing.
Right.
And good luck with that.
Well, it has to be according to their specs.
Well, yeah.
And the thing that they'll want you to do first is put in the pedestrian refuge in the middle.
Yeah.
Because that's what their studies show, that that's the most effective way to protect pedestrians, is to have that middle barrier.
Right, which is why all of these crossings are mid-block, because you can't put those at an intersection.
Then you can't turn left.
Yeah, turn left.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, we really shouldn't be surprised in how quickly they're getting this done. Because if you look at Highway 34 and 7 Mile Lane, it took them like 20 years to get that done. After all those accidents that they had, people pulling out in front of each other. This is not a surprise to me.
Yeah.
And I'm still concerned about being liable for that bridge, 100%.
Right.
If we do anything there, if we move a shovel full, they will put that on us.
Right. And that's what ODOT was concerned with, if they scratched the understructure there, excavated a little bit too much. I don't think they need to do too much, but in case they did, any damage or perception of damage could come back to them.
So
I know this
We
is.
can still do it, careful.
So not you, but so we want to take the chance of scratching the concrete with a backhoe or whatever we get to put in there. And we want that liability put on the city. If that thing collapses and they blame us, I'm not sure that I'm willing to do that.
I guess one question I would have would be, if we had any discussion with Rick Franklin's railroad in regards to this project, their feedback, and like he's mentioned liability, what's their future plans? You know, we want to just tear it out and say, we're done, and.
Yeah.
I've spoken with Rick Franklin about it, and their perception of the railroad bridge is rosier than mine. And so they definitely, they want to keep the bridge in place. They seem to think that at some point it can be rehabilitated and repaired. The problem being that the main thing that's keeping it from being done from their perspective is not enough interest. There's only one customer on the other end of that bridge. And so if that customer gets more interested in rail service, then that's what would move it along to doing something with the bridge. But there are disagreements as to what the state of the bridge is and how much it would, whether it can be repaired or not. My opinion is that it seems to me that it would be kind of foolish to try to repair it. It would make more sense to replace it, but it's an expensive proposition either way.
Well, I'm concerned that it's in the city limits, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's how old? It's how damaged? It's wooden. Have they done anything to check it to make sure that it's structurally safe enough to cross a highway?
I don't know specific how often they get over to look at that.
I believe last winter there was an inspection done by the Federal Railway Administration. I haven't seen a copy of that.
I would think we need to see what the status is.
A copy of it, but from what I understand, the condition of the bridge, as long as there's no traffic on top of it, it's not in danger of falling down or hurting anyone, unless someone hits it again. That's the main danger.
Well, I know that they hit it with a backhoe on a trailer.
Yeah.
I know they hit it with a dump truck. So I'm sure they got some insurance money out of that, I would guess. So whatever.
It's not entirely wood. The parts that got hit were concrete beams.
Yeah.
They just
Yeah.
slid.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's distorted probably a foot to a foot and a half off its support. The original design also had a framework over the pathway. And even with that, Odot did not want to get involved with that work within the right of way, or certainly under the bridge. But it was more of a protective frame in case anything would fall off. Not a tunnel, but just an open grid or an open frame for any of the structural pieces of the bridge that could come down. Yeah, there's a lot of complications for it, but the goal is to try to get some pedestrian access over there one way or the other.
It's kind of funny that they can just sit there and change the scope of everything anytime they want, but we can't do it on our own. I would think we'd be able to come back and say, hey, you change the scope, now we're changing our scope. You can put the pathway on there.
The agreement allowed us to cut down the amount of money that we put into it based on the scope changing. That would be great, but I don't think legally we have an option there.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they'll work with us. Maybe not.
When?
What?
10 years from now?
We won't care.
Never happen.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
I just hope it gets done within the next 8 years, but we'll see. I'm not gonna hold my breath, but anyway.
It'll be $50 million then.
So, thank you, Joe, for your presentation. So we'll now move on. We had a first reading. Motion second to move forward, first reading, and that was on the AX 20-01 and ZC 20-01. And can you speed read it?
Sure did.
Thank you.
Our 2020 ordinance number. Underscore ordinance annexing implementing official zone by rights. The applicant, CDC, applied for annexation and zone change. Application AX 20-01 and ZC 20-0.
I can understand it.
I don't need it that loud.
And requested a zone map change for an area consisting of 0.71 acres located at 789 August Street, Sweet Home, or 97,386. The Sweet Home zoning map is proposed to change from Lynn County's urban growth area rural residential 1 acre minimum, UGA R1, zone to the city of Sweet Home's low density residential R1 zone. The subject property is identified on the Lynn County Assessor's Map as 14S01E06B tax lot 00800, and whereas the Planning Commission of the city of Sweet Home held a public hearing on the 6th of July, 2020 with due notice of such public hearing having been given and provided an opportunity for public comments and testimony. The Planning Commission deliberated at their 6th of July, 2020 meeting and recommended that the City Council approve this application, and whereas the City Council held a public hearing on this matter on the 28th of July, 2020, with due notice of such public hearing having been given and provided an opportunity for public comments and testimony. The City Council approved this application by motion at their 28th of July, 2020 meeting, and whereas the proposed annexation and R1 zoning is needed to connect to city water and sewer services. Now, therefore, the City of Sweet Home does ordain as follows. Section 1. The City of Sweet Home adopts the findings of fact in support of annexation and zone change application AX 20-01 and ZC 20-01 included as exhibitor. Section 2. The City of Sweet Home amends the official zoning map, identified in SHMC 17.20.020 as the city zoning map including all subsequent amendments, for the area consisting of 0.71 acres located at 789 August Street, Sweet Home, or 97386. And identified on the Lynn County Assessor's Map as 14S01E06B tax lot 00800. The official zoning map shall be amended from Lynn County's urban growth area rural residential 1 acre minimum, UGA1, zone to the city of Sweet Home's low density residential, R1, zone for the subject property as shown on Exhibit B passed by the council and approved by the mayor this ________ day of
Blank mayor, test, blank city manager, ex officio city recorder.
Could you put in the very first couple sentences? Or just,
Sure, it only missed ordinance bill number in that.
Okay. Any questions of Councilor? Okay. I need a council directive to move this forward for second reading.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Let the record show we have 4 ayes, 1 nay. Councilor Global has stepped out of the meeting and we want to have 1 absent. Moving forward to second reading by title only on August 7th, August 11th, council meeting. There's no other first readings, no second readings, third readings. Moving on to committees, reports of committees. Anybody would like to bring forth other committees?
Met last week, I believe, and added a person to the board. They're continuing to move forward as best they can. Also, Showcase is going to be doing photos of the pandemic display in City Hall, hopefully, we hope by August 15th or thereby.
Okay. To add to the chamber, I had got a call that there's some discussion for August 19th of having a virtual chamber or like the banquet, but doing a virtual forum. So they're talking about like giving out some of the awards virtually, talking about the mayor's award through virtual, video and address the city status, and doing that by video and stuff like that. So there is some discussion about that happening August 19th. Anything else of committees?
Ad hoc, the Western University group was wanting to get everybody back together and talk and do reports to the original people that they surveyed. And so moving forward.
Okay, moving on to the mayor's report. The only thing I need to remind, I guess it was a misunderstanding. Blair, you had that, the economic development, kind of a survey or kind of where priorities of the councilors were in priority. And you was wanting that back in priority order for the councilors.
Yeah, just rate it with what's the most priority. I received 3 of them, but I need to hear from the other 4 of you.
So
I need a copy of that.
I can give you one.
So any of the councilors that haven't turned that in, please bring it to the city hall, turn it into Blair if you could. Appreciate that. Since you're filling in for city manager, you have a report?
Number 2?
You told me I didn't have to.
Okay.
No, I don't have to.
Okay. Department directors reports. Anybody would like to bring anything to the department or have any questions of the directors? Okay.
Devin, would you give us an update on the water bills, please?
Yeah, we've had a little over half of the 131 accounts that we discussed last meeting. A little over half have paid their entire balance. Of the remaining, we have had, so that's probably 60-ish accounts that are left. We've had 2 people set up payment plans. All of them received the red, I'll call it the red notice, in the mail. We have copies of those if for some reason they didn't make it, but we had 2 people after receiving those notices called to set up a payment plan. Otherwise, we haven't heard from the other probably mid-50s number of accounts. So that's kind of where we're at today.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the department heads?
I do have a question for the chief,
Yeah.
if I may. So in the midst of all of this going on, how has community court been going? Has it been going?
It is actually last Wednesday, we had a meeting at community court and it was a court day and a large number of the providers actually showed up. And so it was a great turnout for it. They're all on board, great discussion on how they're going to actually maneuver clients through that court process. And so they're planning on one more meeting to finalize their processes in August and rolling it out in September.
Perfect.
I have one question with the G2. Are you fully staffed now or are we down some?
We are fully staffed right now. We still have the one open position that during the budget process, we talked about keeping open for.
Tenant thing?
Yeah, through November at least, if not beyond. We'll see how revenue forecasts come out.
And we, like I say, we just sworn in Officer Carlson.
Yes.
Just welcome him aboard for us, would you?
I'll do that.
And I also want to say thank you to the police department. And all the city staff, Public Works, anybody that was involved in the two processions for the, Kennedy family and the.
Yep, that was a good thing.
Very good thing. Anything else? If anything, council business good in order? We will adjourn at 8:15.